Or go.
You have hit the button. It's not working. Okay, now it's booting up. There we are in our little card frames. Cool. I'm a human insect.
Yeah.
All right, you ready?
Whenever you are.
Is this 106?
This is 106.
This is 106. Hello and welcome to Card Knock Life, episode 106. I'm Corey, and here's Daryl.
Yo!
Yo. Knock on wood, we won't have any internet problems this time. I apologize for those who struggled through the first half of our cast last time. We finished strong, and I actually managed to edit that into an intelligible conversation, which took me about 3 hours to do on Monday night last week.
I mean, to be fair, you're not the one going to get hit by the snowstorm here in about 4 hours. It's me, so.
Snowstorm? What in the hell?
Yeah.
We had beautiful weather here in the Northwoods of Wisconsin. Yesterday, I was like outside all day long. It was like 50-some degrees.
Yeah, we're supposed to get 2 to 4 inches of snow today in El Baltimore. So.
El Baltimore. Yeah, that's tough, man. I think we're gonna maybe get some on Saturday, but that's the beginning of spring break for me, so it's not so springy if I'm gonna be shoveling.
That sucks.
But currently the weather is beautiful, and I'm enjoying that, so I'm not gonna think about that until I have to deal with it.
I also have beautiful weather, so no complaints. You can see the nice patio if you're watching on Twitch. There's nice sunshine streaming in.
Yeah. Well, to be fair, it's always beautiful in Baltimore, isn't it?
No.
Like that show, it's always no wait.
It's always
that was
sunny
The Wire
in
that
Philadelphia.
I'm thinking of.
Yeah, the show you're thinking of is Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which is not the correct place.
I'm just joking, of course. But The Wire is all about Baltimore, and it's not very sunny in that show at all.
No, sir. I've never seen that show, but I guarantee you that something about Baltimore police not particularly sunny.
Yeah, you should check it out. It's supposed to be one of the best shows ever made, in some people's opinions.
All right.
So our non-magic segment came early this week.
It did. We put it at the front of the show.
I would like to talk about movies at the end of the show if we can, because I did get a chance to watch some of the Best Picture nominees. But maybe we'll get to that. Maybe we'll just totally forget about it and save it for
we'll do
next
some
time.
non-magic at the end.
But we got a lot to cover today in the world of modern and just generally eternal related to Dominaria. But we had a GP Phoenix last weekend, which was a modern event and some very interesting mix of decks in the top 32, which is very cool. And then I'd like to go and dig in deep to the Dominaria spoilers starting this week, and probably we'll have to roll that over to next week as well, because we have a long list of cards that we think have potential to be eternally playable, specifically for me in the form of modern decks, in modern decks, I should say. Maybe you have some insight into their legacy potential as well, but there's a lot in this set that's exciting to me as a modern player. How about you?
There's quite a few cards that I could see being pretty good, and quite a few cards I could see I'm excited about, and then just them busting, just being like, nope, that card does nothing.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be fair, I put a lot of question marks on my list too, but I think that there might be some niche markets for such things, and I can see certain decks wanting certain effects, and there's a good chance that they just never see play. But this is the fun part, right, where we get to speculate about whether or not they will, and most of the time we're wrong about that, but
yeah, we don't get paid to be right. We just get paid to. We don't even get paid, so yeah.
Well, before we go on, we have to mention we are sponsored by manatraders.com. I think it's above my head. Maybe it's below my head. I don't know. If you're watching the live stream on Twitch,
it's above your head.
Visit manatraders.com, enter the promo code CardKnockLife, one word, and you will get 14% off your first 4 months at checkout. And so that's a pretty fantastic deal if you're looking at this expensive modern format and thinking it would be nice to try a Liliana Goith Bob deck these days, and you don't want to drop the $800 on the digital objects. Just rent it on ManaTraders.
It's more than that, but yeah.
Is it really? My God. Yeah, I guess I'm looking at 970 tickets.
Yeah, it's almost out of the rental cap. The rental cap, if you're at the top end of everything, is 1,250 tickets. So your probably initial rental cap will be a little challenged for Chund. But pretty much every other modern deck is available.
And many legacy decks too.
Yeah, and many legacy decks are available to you. But yeah, the Jund Menace, you have like 3 big spikes all at once, which was Tarmogoyf, Bob, and Liliana, and then Kolaghan's Command also. So they all spiked and went from like a $600 deck to a $1,000 deck on Moto.
Yeah, that is the big bad effect of the unbans. And I kind of feared this to begin with. We talked about the unbannings kind of making control players feel like they had to acquire some Jace the Mind sculptors for 140 bucks a piece. At the time they were that much.
Yeah.
But I think I was more concerned about now Bloodbraid kind of made me think that if you wanted to play the other unbanned card, you would have to really get in even deeper on some Lilianas. And now Bob is damn expensive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. It's when it's just supply and demand. Like Bob is like sitting at a $50 card, but when it's good and supply is not high because it's a mythic and it's an old rare, it
Yeah.
skyrockets back up to 70 or 80. I'm gonna guess Bob's at like 80 right now, probably.
In paper, he is, yeah, more than that actually.
Oh wow.
80 to 90. Very,
Yeah.
very expensive. So these are cards that just need to be reprinted into the affordable price range. But Jund is one of those decks that you really have to be a hardcore Magic the Gathering enthusiast to get into because $1,000 is a down payment on a car. And so if you're gonna
Yeah.
drop that on a stack of cardboard or the ones and zeros that will be stored in your Magic Online account, lent to you from Wizards of the Coast, but not technically your property, then you're really getting in deep.
Yeah. It's like $2,000 in paper, so you're definitely dropping a good chunk of a down
But
payment on a car.
right, and manatraders.com is here to save the day, though. Sign
Oh
up for an
yeah.
account. much more affordable, and with our promo code, you can get it even more affordable than that.
Yep.
So check it out. Speaking of John, did you hear about that guy that killed himself with Dark Confidant in the finals of GP Phoenix?
No, I didn't. I didn't
Yeah, I
watch the
think.
GP. I was busy. My fiance and I had the kid-free weekend, so we were out on a date, and I did not consume Magic content over the weekend.
Yep, he lost to his own Dark Confidant. And the thing
Oh,
about it is, when you're playing Bloodbraid Elf, there is a real risk of damaging yourself
oh,
majorly. I played Magic Online. Actually, yesterday I finished a league, and my last round opponent was playing Jund, and I beat him handily in the first game, and I just got crushed in the second game by my mana base. However, I didn't lose that game because he played two Dark Confidants and literally did 20 damage to himself in 4 turns with them. I did not have to attack. I didn't do anything in that game. I played a Serum Visions, and then I won, and it was fun.
wow. That's
I had a crit. I had a cryptic command at the ready when he was down to 9 life with the 2 Bobs on the table, and or maybe he was down to 5 or something. And I was thinking, there's a good chance he could just kill himself here. But if he doesn't, I just tap his creatures and give him another upkeep so he can kill himself. And I didn't have to do that, so
wow.
that was pretty special.
Charmed life. Zero
Yeah,
points of
man.
damage done by me that game. Charmed life.
Yep. And I
Uh,
had a detention sphere too, and I was thinking this is really good against 2 of the same creature on the table, which was all he had at the moment. But I was like, no, those guys are working for me. Secretly, they're undercover agents, and I'm gonna
yeah.
keep them around.
Greatness at any cost. Well, the cost was the actual factual game. Uh,
Yep.
that's unfortunate.
All right, so humans wins, GP Phoenix. I am quite happy about that. I've historically been playing decks that have great humans matchups, so I love to see more humans. I love to crush humans. And I was worried for a while that it was kind of falling out of favor when Jund and Jace were popular and everyone wanted to play the interesting decks that they presented. But we're seeing some innovations in humans that make it possible for these to stand up to those enemies. Like Mirren Crusader is pretty good. There's a one of Mirren Crusader in the main deck of Steve Locke's humans deck that he won the GP with.
Second one on the sideboard.
Second in the sideboard. Mantis Rider is just a house against cards like Jace, so that's great as well.
Mantis Rider is just like, if your opponent isn't playing Lightning Bolt, Mantis Rider is just like very hard to answer threat. And they
Yeah.
usually have to spend their Lightning Bolts early on like Thalia or Dark Confidant or Champion of the Parish before it gets out of control. And so like you have to
Uh-huh.
awkwardly sequence your lands to play Fatal Push. You have to make trades in combat, which is real awkward. If you're a Jace deck, you probably don't have creatures.
Mm-hmm.
And so Fatal Push is really awkward against it. People aren't playing a ton of Terminates, really. They're playing 1, maybe 2. Abrupt Decay, 1, maybe 2. So you got a lot of these decks that are, don't have a ton of answers to a 3/3 flyer, which is insane to
Yeah.
me. So like if you look at I'll take a look at the Jund deck that was in the finals. It's 4 Liliana in the Veil, but you have to kill their other creatures.
Right.
A Maelstrom Pulse. Well, they've already hit you for 3 or killed your Liliana. 1 Abrupt Decay, 3 Fatal Push, 3 Lightning Bolt. And the other removal spell is a Kolagon's Command, which doesn't kill Mantis Rider. So there's not a lot in the way of things that kill a 3/3 flyer that has 3 CMC in the Jund deck right now.
Yeah, and not to mention every other creature in the deck taxes your removal too. So if they go turn 2 Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, it's like you're going to commit turn 3 to killing either the Thalia or killing the Mantis Rider, and then being even further behind when you're trying to deal with the Thalia later. So that's hard to do. You really got to have a stack of Fatal Push or Path to Exiles to get caught up there.
You have to have very efficient, cheap removal spells so that you can play, on turn 3 you can play 2 removal spells in the face of a Thalia. Because the first one kills Thalia, the second one kills whatever. Yeah.
Now we're seeing more and more Direfleet Daredevil in Modern. I've seen it in Grixis decks a lot. Now it's in a 1-of in the main deck of this Humans deck, as well as 1-of in the sideboard. Where do you think that card shines? Is that for Jund type matchups where you're taking their removal and using it against them?
I mean, it's just a 2-for-1. Like in Jund matchups, you need some more 2-for-1s. You need Dark Confidants and Daredevils and Freebooters, like things that cause your opponent to you to gain cards because your opponent is playing the game. Yeah. So against the control decks, you get a Serum Visions, you get a Mana Leak, you get if you can get it off a Vial, you can take a counter spell. You get a removal spell for the man land, stuff like that. Against Jund, you get discard, you get removal, you get a Maelstrom Pulse. It's just dependent on what your opponent's deck is doing. Whether it ranges from just a 2/1 first striker to alright, I get this guy off a Vial and I get a Cryptic Command, or I get a Lightning Bolt or a Kolagon's Command or something like that. Like if your opponents are getting Kolagon's commands off their Direfleet Daredevils from you, you're in a world of hurt.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, man, I think that any deck that's playing Aether Vial benefits even more from a card like that. And the same is true for the Hostage Taker that he's got on the board. We talked about that a little bit last week with that Esper Taxes deck, but popping a creature into play that has an activated ability that costs you mana obviously is something that you would enjoy doing when you can put that creature into play for free and at instant speed.
Correct.
So I love Hostage Taker in that situation. I mean, there's nothing better than, surprise, I've got a blocker, and I've got another blocker, and it happens to be one of your creatures that you tried to attack me with, or you wanted to.
See, I can just imagine... Hold on, I got to read this Magic card to make sure that I am not wrong that this works the way I think it does. Yeah, so, I mean, it's really good. This is, I'm going to go real far-fetched here with an Aether Vial. Against Jund, you take your Jund opponent's Bloodbraid Elf with a Hostage Taker. You cast it. You get a Cascade. You get another human.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, at best, probably, though, you're taking a Dark Confidant and playing a Dark Confidant. And you're just like, all right, I have a Bob now. It's a human. It gets pumped by Lieutenant. You can copy it with Phantasmal Image. You just get to keep kind of keep perpetuating the damage there.
Yeah. I would have never thought, Daryl, that Ixalan would have such a profound effect on Modern. I mean, we're seeing a lot of stuff, and I've taken it for granted lately because it seems to have been a part of Modern for so long now because we've seen so much of it. But Direfleet Daredevil is an Ixalan card, or a Rivals of Ixalan card. Kitesail Freebooter and the Unclaimed Territory basically made this deck possible.
Yeah.
Hostage Taker's seeing play as well. We're seeing Opt outside of this deck. We're seeing tons of stuff outside of this deck even, but there's a significant Ixalan presence in Humans, which it's pretty cool. Standard sets lately have been having a lot of effect on Eternal formats.
Yeah, have been a big deal for Eternal, which is actually just a very good Field of Ruin, another card that you totally search for as Canton. These cards that you're like, it's good enough for Standard, and somebody tries it in Modern, all right, this is actually just good enough for Modern, and thank you, come again. So,
speaking of Field of Ruin, I want to talk about that. We haven't seen a lot of Tron in this particular event. There's some, but Field of Ruin, I mean, I'm so happy about that card. That's exactly what Control needed to have access to mana fixing. Having to play a Ghost Quarter against Tron lands sets you so far behind where they just get a basic and they just continue doing what they're going to do anyway, and they functionally strip mined you.
Yeah, it's miserable. It's absolutely
they functionally
miserable.
stone rained you. So Feel the Rune is like, it honestly is the perfect piece, you know?
Yeah.
And so that's an example of a card that seems to be really specifically printed for its modern function, while it has, you know, like collateral damage on what it can do in standard. It can deal with the flip enchantments and things.
Yeah.
But we're seeing that in Dominaria too, and there are a few cards we're going to talk about later that are really interesting, that they seem to be like adding things to the metagame rather than trying to ban things out of existence. And those things that are added to the metagame should help to kind of ease the tension with those cards that are problems in Modern.
Yeah.
So, spoiler alert. Stay tuned for that conversation later. All right, what else do we want to talk about in this top 8? I know there's one that you wanted to cover.
Yes. I could ramble for a little while, so if you got anything else you want to look at, let's take a look at it. I know you liked the Bring to Life Escape Shift deck.
Oh, I did. Yeah, absolutely. I want to
This-
talk about that one.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
mean, I'm gonna list it off. Sung Jin An's Bring to Light Escape Shift, 2 Jace the Mind Sculptor, 4 Sakura Tribe Elder, a Snapcaster Mage, 4 Bring to Light, 2 Farseek, a Hunting Wilds, 2 Scape Shift, 4 Search for Tomorrow, a Supreme Verdict, 3 Cryptic Command, an Is It Charm, 3 Lightning Bolt, 4 Remand, 2 Search for Azcanta, a Breeding Pool, a Cinderglade, a Flooded Grove, 2 Forests, a Hollowed Fountain, 3 Islands, 4 Misty Rainforest, 2 Mountain, 1 Plains, 4 Steam Vent, 3 Stomping Ground, a Temple Garden, 2 Valakuts, and then the sideboard is an Anger of Gods, a Crumble to Dust, a Destructive Revelry, 2 Dispel, a Glenelendra Archmage, an Engineered Explosives, a Grafdigger's Cage, a Madcap Experiment, a 2 Negate, 2 Obstinate Bailoff, a Platinum Empyrean, and a Shatterstorm.
Nice. Yeah, I thought this deck was dead. You know, we haven't seen much of it. I thought that Titan Shift was just so much better. It outclassed it. And this deck's mana base was so inconsistent.
Yeah, this deck's mana base is a train wreck. I don't know how he did it.
Helps.
I don't know how he did it with 0 Prismatic Omens.
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm curious about the function of Jace in this deck and how that eases those problems with the Brainstorm effect. Now, Jace costs blue, so it's like kind of mana intensive in itself, and it's kind of mana intensive in like a splash color. So it needs cards like Flooded Grove to kind of ease those problems.
So Jace isn't the splash color. That's what you're misinterpreting. If you look at the mana base of the deck, if you look at the way the deck's constructed, blue and green are the primary colors with Bring to Light.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
So white and red are the splash colors. You're splashing for Valakut, which seems insane because there's only 10 mountains in this deck, but you're splashing for Valakut. So but you have 3 islands and a bunch of blue lands. You have triple Cryptic Command. So double Jace isn't unreasonable. And so what double Jace does here is it does a few things. The first is it gives you more velocity to find the one-ofs, so that if you have them in your deck, you can find them and cast them naturally. And it also gives you this inherent, this is going to sound bizarre, this inherent advantage to use your Bring to Lights to protect your spells. So you have Escape Shift in your deck. And some opponents will screw this up, some opponents won't. And so it's kind of dependent. If you draw the Escape Shift, you can hide it with Jace and go fetch it with Bring to Light. So the only card you're exposing to your Jace is the to like an opponent's discard spell is your tutor for your kill condition. Whereas
you're saying so like they don't know what deck you're on?
No. So with the Jace, when you brainstorm, you can put Escape Shift on top and hold Bring to Light. So you cast Bring to Light. They know you're probably on Escape Shift, but if you cast it, they are and they're a smart blue player. They let it resolve. You get Escape Shift and they counter it. But against the discard decks, they hit you with a discard spell and they see Bring to Light. They have to take it because if they have any memory of recent Modern, they know that your Bring to Light is going to get Escape Shift.
Oh, yeah, I see what you're saying.
So he can go down copies of Escape Shift. We went down to 2 Escape Shift here. Because with the 4 copies of Bring to Light, even if you find Escape Shift to put on top of your deck, they have to take Bring to Light with their discard. So then your Escape Shifts are insulated from the discard portion, as long as you can get them back on top of your deck with Jace.
Yeah. I really like the sideboard Madcap Platinum Empyrean in this deck. That seems great with not only Jace, but obviously Bring to Light. It's very good because you're running functional 5 copies of Madcap Experiment.
Yeah.
You can board in 2 cards into the deck and become an entirely different strategy. And Jace does a great job of, obviously you can brainstorm the Platinum Empyrean back into your deck so that you can get it with the Madcap and you don't have to cast it, hard cast it. But this deck has a real chance of hard casting it with the 26 lands, 4 Sakura Tribe Elders, all the Farseeks, all the Hunting Wilds, you know.
Yeah.
It can actually get to 8.
Yeah, 8 is cool. 8 is basically where you have to be for Scape Shift anyways. This just gives you another way to like beat Burn or Humans or something like that is like an aggressive clock. You can put this guy into play and just hang out until you draw your Anger of the Gods, you kill all the humans, and then you just start crushing them for 8.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, this looks like a hell of a deck to play. Decks like this are challenging. They're very challenging.
Yes.
And you have to take a lot of risky lines where you're playing into, potential counter spells with your, you've got to shoot for the moon with that Bring to Light sometimes, I feel.
You do.
Or with that Scape Shift, but that's what people play Magic for, I guess. It's the adrenaline rush that keeps us coming back to this game.
Yeah, the quick hitter.
Yeah. So you want to talk about this Ironworks combo? Why don't you? Why don't you go and do that?
So this is basically eggs, or the eggs redux from Scrap Trawler existing. And I'll go through the list real quick. An Emrakul, a Hanger Backwalker, 2 Mirror Retriever, 4 Scrap Trawler, 4 Ancient Stirrings, 2 Chromatic Sphere, 4 Star, 2 Engineered Explosives, 4 Ichor Wellspring, 4 Karkalan Ironworks, 4 Mindstone, a Mishra's Bauble, 4 Mox Opal, a Pyrite Spellbomb, 4 Terrarian, 4 Darksteel Citadel, 3 Aether Hub, 2 Buried Ruin, 2 Forest, 4 Grove of the Burn Willows, 3 Inventor's Fair. And then the sideboard is a Collective Brutality, 2 Defense Grid, 2 Garrett per Aether Grid, 2 Guttural Response, 4 Nature's Claim, 2 Nihil Spellbomb, 2 Warm Coil Engine. So,
nice.
For those of you that don't know how this works, you put a Karkalan Ironworks into play with a Scrap Trawler. When you sacrifice your artifacts, if they're 2 mana artifacts, you can get a 1 or less mana artifact back. If they're 1 mana artifacts, you can get a 0 mana artifact back. The key to the engine here is Mox Opal. So if you have Mox Opal, Mirror Retriever, Scrap Trawler, and one of the stars in play, you can activate the star to use its ability to generate a mana of any color, and then you have to pay the cost. So you sacrifice the Mox Opal, the Mirror Retriever, and the Scrap Trawler all to make 6 mana to pay the cost of the star. Because of that, all 3 of those artifacts go to the graveyard at the same time. And then the star also goes as a part of all this going into the stack. So you end up with the Mirror Retriever getting back the Scrap Trawler, the Scrap Trawler trigger for it dying, getting back the Mirror Retriever, the Mirror Retriever trigger for the Scrap Trawler, the 2 mana artifact, getting back the star, and then the star getting back the opal. So you net a mana, because this costs 6 mana total, and you make 6 mana when you sacrifice those things. But the Mox Opal being tapped, that's your mana. So you go infinite, you draw your whole deck, and then you kill them with whatever, whether it's Pirate Spellbomb, or Emrakul, or a giant Hanger Backwalker making a bunch of tokens. Like that, all that, just any of those things can kill them.
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely an interesting deck in theory, but when you're sitting across the table from it, watching it play out, it's one of those, like, I'm going to get up and go to the bathroom, tell me when you're done type of deck.
So it's not even that, because with the new loop, with that loop, which a lot of people didn't understand because of the way Karkalan Ironworks is structured as a mana ability, how you can activate it, with that loop of cards, it's literally an infinite loop that can't be stopped. So they are eventually just, like, when you show them those 4 cards, and Ironworks in play, they're dead. Like, it is an actual infinite loop, and you can just iterate it how many ever times you'd like. And then once you start to draw, like, extra Scrap Trawlers, then the loop becomes much easier, and it becomes much more apparent, like, what is happening. Because then, you get to the point where if you draw the second Mirror Retriever, you just loop the 2 Mirror Retrievers and make infinite mana, or make you can get back infinite 1 mana artifacts, which you then play for a mana, and then sacrifice for 2 mana without drawing the card off of them, so you get back the star or the spheres. and you can loop those infinitely and make infinite mana off of those. So like it truly is an infinite and like non-deterministic loop. So you can actually just show them the cards, and they should literally just pick their cards up, because then you just pick one of the win conditions to show them.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
I haven't seen guttural response in the sideboard. That makes total sense in these types of decks. What is that reprint from? It's got a monkey in the snow.
Monkey in the snow.
You see that? I'm looking at the mothership is displaying guttural response.
I don't actually know what that's from. It's probably
that must
from,
be like a pre-con package product.
Dual decks, Mine versus Might. I clicked on it. I couldn't.
Oh, okay, Mine versus Might. Gotcha. Yeah. All right.
But yeah, like there's been a lot of different ways to build this deck. People have tried splashing blue, playing like blue-green colorless, and like playing both Whir of Invention and Ancient Stirrings. Some people have just went straight up mono green for just Ancient Stirrings, like Matt here has. And then sometimes you'll see things like Blood Moon in your sideboard as an antithesis to Tron. So there's the box opals plus the stars let you splash whatever you want, really. So like you have a lot of sideboard options to kind of make your way through the games.
Yeah, I'm surprised no Whir of Invention. I mean, obviously he's not playing that version of the deck, but that seemed to be the thing that was making this deck become more interesting to players. I've seen more and more of these Ironworks combo decks lately since Whir was printed. But there's something to be said about not having a card in your deck that requires 3 blue mana symbols.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell based on the way he structured his mana base. There's 18 lands in the deck because Dark Citadel gets grouped into artifacts. But he made the very intentional choice of not creating a situation where he has a ton of colored mana. Aether Hub is like really awkward against like Field of Ruin and Ghost Quarter, because you can just like not get your mana because it puts a trigger on the stack and they can kill it in response to you getting the energy, so you can't activate it for like the correct color of mana. He played 4 Grove of the Burn Willows as a nod to the red splash, of which there's only really one card in the sideboard, and that's Scarab or Aether Grid. So those could have been something like Glimmer Voids or Spire of Industries, so that you could have access to blue. You could play like Botanical Sanctum if you needed access to blue, and you could play Islands. So there's like a lot of very obvious yet subtle choices made to like create a situation where Whir of Invention was not a card that you ended up playing. But you could play like 1 or 2, because like I think most people like 4. It's like, oh, then I have 8 Ironworks. But really, you really just need to play like 2, because then the math checks out that, or should check out that 1 in every 10 of your cards is a Whir of Invention, or is an Ironworks, whether being a Whir or an actual Ironworks. So by that number, you should draw 1 in the first 3 turns, which is sort of the critical turn for you going off.
Yep, that's fair. All right, let's round out this top 8 here before we move on. So Humans won the event, Jund in second, Ironworks combo in the semifinals, Nightfall also in the semifinals, Bring to Light Scapeshift, Green-White Hate Bears, Tron, Green-Black Tron in 7th, and Red-Green Eldrazi in 8th. What a healthy metagame. That looks awesome, doesn't it? Very, very much some interesting, considerably
that is 8 different
tier decks.
Right?
It is 8 different decks, 8 very different decks, and plenty of them that you would never have picked, to even be in the top 8 of this event.
Yeah.
This 8th place Red-Green Eldrazi deck I'd been hearing murmurs about as Bloodbraid was unbanned, but before it was legal to play.
Yeah.
On paper, this is kind of funky. It's like, it plays all the typical mid-range Eldrazi's, including Eldrazi Obligator, which can be found with Bloodbraid, and then you can pay the kicker that it has, which is 1 in a colorless. If you do gain control of target creature until on end of turn and tap it, and it gains haste. I mean, that's a beating. If you've got 6 mana available and you're going to play Eldrazi Obligator off your Bloodbraid, you can even use the Eldrazi Temple to pay that activation cost.
Yes.
So that's pretty strong.
Yeah, like
so I suppose I can see that.
That's a very good way for you to swing a game when you're in the late game and you have a lot of that mana. If you only have 1 temple, is like Bloodbraid into Obligator, taking something like a Tarmogoyf or something like that. Then you're hitting them for 10 or 11 or 12 all of a sudden out of nowhere.
Yeah.
And when the creatures you're contending with are like Thought-Knot Seers and stuff like that to begin with, you're already fighting against very large creatures. So
Sure.
it's very likely that your life total is not as high as you'd like it to be in the face of, 10 hasty damage.
Right. Yeah, this deck has a penchant for kind of getting ahead on mana with, obviously the Temple is very good at that. You can play turn 2 Thought Not Seer if all the things go according to plan. But it can also do turn 2 Mind Stone into turn 3 Bloodbraid Elf, Thought Not Seer, even Reality Smasher if you wanted to.
Yeah.
So it's pretty good at cheating out big beater creatures early on.
Yeah.
So there's that. There's also green-white Hate Bears, which is functionally like a green-white company deck that exchanges oh my god, Collected Company
For Aether
Court of
Vial.
Calling for Aether Vial, but it doesn't so much have the typical value package. It's just the green. Well, this is just straight up a green-white Hate Bears. I kind of know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I was curious where you were going with this. I'm like, this looks pretty Hate Bears right now. Like 4 Flicker Wisp, 4 Thalia, 4 Voice, 4 Leaning Arbiter. That's Hate Bears.
This seems like a fantastic meta call.
This person did not want to lose to Jund.
No, but
3 Mirran Crusaders.
I'm sure he did.
3 Mirran
that seems like a good choice.
And then in the sideboard, 2 Auriok Champions. Like, I have all of the pro-black creatures in the world. Like, let's do this.
Black and red with Auriok Champion, too. So there's something about that. I don't know if that's really needed for Jund. Is that what that's in there for, Auriok Champion? Or is that just kind of like burn as well?
It's in there for burn.
Like, I feel like I'd want Core Firewalker over Auriok Champion, but I'm certainly not Tate, and I certainly didn't get 6th place with this deck.
Yeah, it has the upside of being playable against Jund, because it turns off all their removal. Like, literally none of their removal can hit it. So it's just like Tarmogoyf can block it. So if they kill the Tarmogoyfs, it's unblockable, or it's a brick wall.
Yeah. Sure. And he's got Mark of Asylum in the sideboard, which is interesting.
That
1 and a white for
good.
an enchantment. Prevent all non-combat damage that would be dealt to creatures you control. That shuts off a lot of Searing Blaze and whatever the landfall version of that is. Searing Blood and Searing Blaze.
You got it backwards, yeah. So that's actually just a better Burrington Forgetender, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because, like, you use Burrington Forgetender against, like, Jund to, like, counter, like, 1 red spell, which is Anger of the Gods. So if you just play this, you also turn off all their Lightning Bolts and all their Kolaghan's commands. On top of turning off their Anger of the Gods. So,
it's an enchantment.
Yeah.
It's hard to deal with.
Yeah, since he's not playing Cord, it makes sense to play Mark, because it's just much better. It does have some awkwardness with your Thalia, but whatever.
You know what? When you're playing Thalia, you're in for that kind of stuff, and it's worth it. If you're playing 2 mana enchantments, you can deal with it,
Yeah, exactly.
So this seems like a great deck. There's a lot of Aether Vial these days, which would explain the $30 price tag on those things. They're not cheap.
Yeah, I mean, they've always been around that price point.
Yeah, that's a card that needs a reprint as well. I'd love to play some Aether Vials in a Taxes deck of some sort, but
sure.
That's the thing that's pricing me out. Now, there's a lot that this deck can do when it uses Aether Vial to play its creatures. Then it's got access to all of its mana and all of its lands. So he's playing like a Stirring Wildwood, which I think is one of the most underrated man lands in the format. It can block all the Souls tokens. It can block Vendilion Click and Restoration Angel and whatnot. And beyond that, it's a good beater. It's a 3/4 that is a pretty cheap activation cost.
Yeah.
But he's got 3 Tech Edge. He's got 4 Ghost Quarters. That's 7 land destruction lands in the deck. He's got 4 Horizon Canopy. His mana is doing so much for him.
Yeah.
He's only got 22 lands in the deck to begin with, and like half of those have other effects. So
yeah, over half.
I mean, that's the advantage of playing this sort of deck, I suppose. But beyond that, Leonin Arbiter just seems really, really nice right now against all the searching that Tron players are trying to do and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it's just fetch lands in general in this format are a big deal. Path to Exile with Leonin Arbiter is a nice synergy. Build your own Swords to Plowshares.
Yeah. All right, shall we get into our Dominaria discussion?
Let me scroll down the top 32 here real quick and see if there's anything I want to be excited about. But if not, then yeah, we can go to Dominaria. Blue-white control. That's a lot of planeswalkers in blue-white control.
Yeah, they're playing all the Gideons these days, and I've been doing the same. I love it. Gideon Ally is a house.
Giant pile of planeswalkers.
Yeah.
There's Blue Moon playing Blood Moons and Spreading Seasons. Surprising. Shocked. Part of my answer. Ponza, Tron, Elves, Chun, Affinity, Madcap Moon. Nothing really exciting there. Titan Shift, Taking Turns.
Oh, we don't need to talk about that abomination, do we?
I mean, I like it, but
You can say that you like it. That's it.
yeah, nothing to talk about. Let's go to Dominaria.
I won't hold that against you.
Let's go to Dominaria.
Okay, so Dominaria has, obviously, we talked about the release sheet was spoiled early. It was leaked by Wizards itself. I didn't realize that last week when we were talking about it, but they put it on their Chinese website on accident. Whoops.
Yeah. Oops. Big oops.
So we're going to get into the spoilers now. So if you're interested in keeping those a secret and kind of getting them spoiled to you or shared with you as they are officially released, then you should probably shut off the podcast now.
Yeah.
But let's start with white. I don't know that we're going to get through all of these colors given the half an hour that we have left and the amount of stuff we've put on this list. So we'll have to play it by ear. We're going to start in color order here with white. I've identified Dauntless Bodyguard as a potential Eternal player.
Right.
Here's what this card can do. It's 1 white for a 2/1 creature. When it comes into play, you choose a creature you control, and you can sacrifice Dauntless Bodyguard, and that creature becomes indestructible until end of turn. Okay. What are your initial thoughts, Daryl? By the way, it's a human. I forgot to mention it's a human knight. Relevant creature type.
Yeah, you're really relevant creature type. Awkward sequencing.
Yeah.
Because like you want to play like your Savannah Lions on turn 1 to like get the beatdown going. But if you play this guy's Savannah Lions on turn 1, that's all he is. Like you don't get the bonus of the creature being indestructible. So like it's good like with Champion of the Parish. Then you like play your Savannah Lion, pump your champion. Make it indestructible, and then like hopefully have another 1-drop to play.
Yeah.
And then you just have like 6 or 7 power and an indestructible champion of the parish, and it's just. Well,
I would think of it this way, rather than saying, I mean, yes, clearly that it has kind of 2 counterproductive roles.
Yeah.
I would think that those, rather than being counterproductive roles, are more like just different options with it. You know, like when you need to go aggressive, you can pop this 2/1 into play on turn 1 and start attacking. If you draw him late game and he's a bad top deck, he has this upside of being able to save one of your creatures from a wrath spell.
It's like an onboard Brave the Elements, like which makes it much worse. Like Brave the Elements is so good because your opponent doesn't know you have it. So like this kind of being just like on the board and be like, well, here you go.
Well, this is an Aether Vial deck, remember? So you play a Champion of the Parish on your second turn after you've played Aether Vial on your first turn. You put the champion into play, flash this guy into play, pump their dude or pump your dude, and you've got 4 power attacking. Right, Humans has got so many 1-drops that you don't need to commit to this guy on turn 1. You've got Hierarchs, you've got Champion of the Parish. There's a lot to do.
Right, but the thought is you're not leaving your vial on 1 very long.
That's fair. Yeah.
So it's not going to be that instant speed protection spell that you want it to be. But
to be honest, I didn't even really consider this for humans at first when I put this on the list. I mean, it's obviously got potential in there. I don't know that it's going to see play necessarily, but it's not a bad card, and you wouldn't be laughed at for putting it in your deck.
So it's very good at protecting your like key disruption card. So like against your like storm opponent or something like that, when you like Kitesail Freebooter their Gifts Ungiven or whatever, and they go to bolt your guy. Like, having this to protect your guy is a big deal, because then it makes them get a second piece of removal for your important guy. Like, this card plus Thalia, every control deck's going to want to rip their freaking hair out, because, like, you're going to play this guy after you play Thalia, and they're going to spend 2 mana to bolt the Thalia, and you're going to sack this guy, and then they have to find another 1-mana removal spell to spend 2 mana on to kill this guy, so that he can even get into sniffing range of Supreme Verdict, and by then they might just be dead.
Right. So, yeah, in that respect, this is kind of like a better curse catcher for this deck in a weird way, right? Because it doesn't counter a spell, obviously, but it's a 1-drop that sits around and complicates the removal spells that they're going to try to use on your more important creatures.
Yeah.
And has the upside of attacking for 2 in the meantime, Like, that's not bad.
Yeah, attacking for 2 is a non-zero thing. So, like, seems pretty solid.
Okay, so let's go on to the next one. In white, Healing Grace. Okay, this one's a weird one, so hear me out. Healing Solve, obviously a pretty piss-poor card in comparison to the other cards in the cycle. Healing Grace is a huge improvement from it. It's 1 white for an instant. I imagine this being a common or an uncommon. Prevent the next 3 damage that would be dealt to any target this turn by a source of your choice. You gain 3 life. It does both things that Healing Salve does, and it's an instant. Now, I'm imagining this as a sideboard piece against like burn decks when you're playing Snapcaster Mage. This is a very Snapcasterable card at 1 mana.
Sure.
And it's a functional 1 mana counterspell for whatever burn spell that they need to use. And gains you 3 life. It's a 6-point life swing for 1 mana. I don't hate it.
I could be convinced that it's a thing that could be playable.
Not to mention it can be targeted. You can target a creature, like you can prevent the damage to a creature too. So it's got other advantages and other versatility.
I mean, I'm not excited about it, but I'm not convinced that it isn't unreasonable. Like you can play it, and I wouldn't laugh you out of the building.
Yeah.
But it does kind of get punished by Skullcrack real bad.
Yes, I suppose. I mean, you got to be. I mean, you're playing this at the end of your turn when they're going to try to cast spells. You know, they're gonna tap out to burn you, right? So I don't think Skullcrack's really too big of a factor unless they're sitting on like 4 or 5 mana. You know.
Sure. It's just a thought that like, be careful.
Okay. Fair enough. I like it. I can guarantee you'll see it in a sideboard somewhere at some time. Maybe not a staple, but I'm certainly gonna give it a shot.
Okay.
Okay, another white one. Seal Away. Okay, this is an odd one.
This one is real
potentially
good.
A niche. I'm guessing this one is an is an uncommon, but I can't say for sure. 1 and a white for an enchantment. Flash. When it enters the battlefield, exile target tapped creature an opponent controls until Sealed Away leaves the battlefield. So it's a Journey to Nowhere with Flash, but it can only target a tapped creature. I think the Flash is a huge difference and makes it significantly more of a consideration for Modern as a result.
Yeah, like... So, like... I've legitimately considered playing Baffling End. In Modern, just in like a blue-white control deck. But Journey to Nowhere, like... So, like, Baffling End, I think, is better than Journey and then Seal Away. Because, like, when you Baffling End their thing, unless it's... You just don't ever want them to have that thing. Like, you're not going to Baffling End, like, a 1-1. Or seal away. You're not sealing away a 1-1. You're sealing away.
Sometimes you have to.
I mean, sure. Sometimes you seal away a champion of the parish that if they killed your thing, them getting a 3/3 is much worse than them getting a champion of the parish. But like most of the time, you're sealing away like Dark Confidant or Tarmogoyf or something that provides your opponent value that is scary. And I would rather that thing just forever be gone. And then if you get rid of my enchantment, you can have a 3/3. That's fine. Whatever. Like, it's just a token. I can clean it up with a Jace bounce. And then you don't have a card. It's just kind of, like, irrelevant. So, like, if I wanted to play... And then, like, most of the creatures in Modern are sub 3 or 3 or less CMC. So, like, there's the occasional Thought-Knot Seer and Bloodbraid Elf and stuff like that. That, you know, Baffling End doesn't hit. And the Delve threats. But oftentimes, the creatures you're interacting with are going to be in such a position that Baffling End is a playable magic card. And it's usually tempo even.
Sure. So are you saying that you prefer that over Seal Away as well?
I do. Now, it might be that the instant speed, you know, is more useful, but I'm just concerned with the fact that, like, if Abrupt Decay comes back as a reasonable magic card, which, you know, seeing plays like a 1 of or 2 of right now, if it goes up to like a 3 of, I would rather have a Baffling End than a Seal Away.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, Bloodbraid Elf certainly makes Abrupt Decay a little awkward, so as long as that's getting played, I don't think everyone's going to be too jazzed about playing an Abrupt Decay.
Right.
But Sealed Away has this unusual interaction with certain, like, difficult to target creatures. You know, I'm thinking of, like, I'm sure there are more of them, but the Emrakul that can't be targeted by instance, you know, that kind of thing. Like, having an instant speed answer to something that exiles, that gets around those sort of weird keywords is, I don't know, maybe there's something to be said about that. It's probably not the time or place where this is needed, but if it exists at some point in time, we'll consider Seal Away.
Sure.
And I'm thinking that there are probably some Enchantment Matters decks that care about this or want this. So who knows? All right, let's go on to the next one. In white, this is a weird one. Teshar, Ancestor's Apprentice. So what this is 3 and a white for a 2/2 flying legendary creature something. I can't see its type.
Bird cleric.
Bird cleric. Okay, whenever you cast a historic spell, by the way, which is an artifact, legendary, or saga, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Now, here's my question for this: is I assume any artifact would be considered historic, including artifact creatures, right?
Correct.
So there's got to be some loop with this one, isn't there? Return something from the graveyard to the battlefield. I suppose it's when you cast, you know. So this seems to be some kind of combo enabler. I don't know what, but at the least, it's a pretty interesting card alongside like free free artifact spells, kind of like a la Cheerios, who's like dropping all the equipment for 0.
Sure.
I don't know. There might be nothing here, but it seems to be a card that has potential to be broken.
I don't think there's much here. Like, you might be able to like play Phyrexian Revoker and then get a free Thalia or Blade Splicer or something like that. Or do the same thing, like play a Thalia and get a like Tide Hollow Sculler. So like there are like legendary and artifact creatures that the Antax's decks play. That you can like have this guy as like a mid-range threat and just like, all right, we've kind of grinded the game a little bit. Here's my 2-for-1. If I untap with this, I'm going to cast Thalia and get back Blade Splicer or Flicker Wisp or something like that. And then I'm going to cast Phyrexian Revoker or Tide Hollow Sculler and get back my Leonin Arbiter. And then all of a sudden I go from this guy to having 5 creatures in play.
Yeah, it's interesting with Tide Hollow Scholar and artifact creatures with that are also like played in Taxes type decks. I didn't consider that. I don't know. It's a little awkward, being that it's only a 2/2 flyer. Like, there's not a lot of upside that it provides otherwise for like a beatdown plan.
Right.
I don't know. It seems like it could be a 3/3 or a 3/4 if you ask me.
I mean, you'd have to go to like 2 white at that point, which makes it less splashable. Yeah.
Sure.
Which, I mean, the splashability is big for Antax's decks because they're playing so many colorless lands and, they're playing swamps. And if they're playing the Eldrazi portion of the Antaxes, they're, trying to fit all these colorless Matters cards in. So, like, it's not, I don't hate it, but I'm not, like, overjoyed by it.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. It remains to be seen if we'll be even considered. All right, sure. Urza's Ruinous Blast is my last one in white. And this one is a legendary sorcery, which you can only cast if you have a legendary creature or planeswalker. Probably the biggest problem with this card, and maybe the potential reason that it's not going to be played. But what it does for 4 and a white for a sorcery, exile all non-land permanents that aren't legendary. Remember that planeswalkers are now all considered legendary, so this merely gets rid of all the creatures, enchantments, and artifacts. What do you think?
Maybe. Like, I could see it as like a blue-white control is one of, because you play like 3 Jace, 2 Gideon, 1 Gideon, 1 Gideon. So you have 7 legendary planeswalkers. And like being able to get rid of artifacts and like cranial plating or whatever generic value artifact they have laying around, as well as Wrath of guiding the board, because most of the time your opponents aren't playing legendary creatures. Like, that's a nice upside. Like, unfortunately, Search for Azcanta won't let you cast a spell otherwise. Whew. Oh boy.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Well, legendary creature or planeswalker. Yeah, that's unusual. Why would enchantments be included in that mix?
Yeah, we would. If Search for Azcanta allowed you to cast this card would be very good, and I think it would see a lot of playing control. But because the sagas, I don't know if they're actually considered legendary or not, or they're just historic. But like because of that and the like Azcanta and stuff like that, if the legendary enchantments could do it, this card would be way better. But as is, I'm skeptical.
Yeah, it's probably not good enough to see play. The fact that it requires you to commit, a previous turn to setting it up to even allow you to play it, is probably enough to say that this is not a good catch me up card in any stretch of the imagination.
Correct.
So probably won't see play, but it is kind of a unique effect, and the right cost. The cost is right if you've got a legendary creature, something that is reliable and consistent.
This thing is certainly getting jammed in every EDH ever that plays white.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All
So
right, that's all I got for white. You got anything for
I
white?
had a white card that I just noticed as I was scrolling down. I thought this might actually be pretty good.
Yeah.
And you could play it. I think you could play it in like white aggressive strategies and get a
Mm-hmm.
lot out of it. So it's Triumph of Gerard. It's one in a white enchantment saga. Um, for those of you who don't remember what sagas do, is when it enters the battlefield, and after you draw, put a lore counter on it, sacrifice it after you get to 3 lore counters. So the lore counters 1 and 2 are the same, which is put a 1/1 counter on target creature you control with the greatest power, and then
Opposite bolster.
yeah, opposite bolster. And then 3 is target creature you control with the greatest power gains flying, first strike, and lifelink until end of turn.
Huh.
So it's
Bogles.
yeah, boggles, correct. So yeah, you play a slippery boggle, then you play this. It gets a counter, you attack for 2. Then it gets a counter, you put some enchantments on it, attack for 5 or whatever. And then your guy has
Yeah.
flying, first strike, and lifelink, and you put some more enchantments on it, and you crush them. You can also just see it being played in Antax's decks because you like get the counter off of it on turn 2, you get the counter off of
Mm-hmm.
it on turn 3, and then before it dies, you can flicker wisp it, and it comes back to play and starts giving you counters again, so you can grow your whole team with your flicker wisps.
Yeah.
Uh,
There's that green black snake deck. It could be in the Abzan snake deck with the hardened scales.
yeah,
It's
I
kind
would
of
see
interesting with
it.
hardened scales.
I would see it getting probably the most play in decks with flicker wisp, and
Yeah, reset it.
yeah, reset it to 1, get another counter because when it gets reset, it automatically triggers and puts the counter on. So like you play like a Thalia or like not, I guess the Thalia, but like that makes it awkward. You play Thalia, then you play this. Thalia becomes a 3/2 first striker you can attack. You untap, you
Mm-hmm.
put another counter on Thalia, it's a 4/3. You cast Flicker Wisp, blink this, it makes Thalia a 5/4. And you continue growing this very big Thalia. Like
Yeah, yeah.
if you can
So
if you can set it up where it's in play and hits a 1-drop, it's much better. But like because it's in play, hits a 1-drop, and then hits the 1-drop again, and then like a 3-drop can legitimately be like a 3/3 or a 4/4. So like now, and when you flicker it, it's like if you put it on a 1-drop, it's like a 1/1. It becomes a three
yeah,
three with the second counter. You play Flicker Wisp, you blink it, then you can pick which one you want to be bigger, whether you want the Flicker Wisp or the 3/3. And then so you
oh
pick the
sure,
flick,
yeah.
you pick the Flicker Wisp. It goes up to a 5/3 by the next turn, and then you can make your other guy fly and have like 8 or 9 power in the air.
And this is too cute. I think.
I think it might
I don't know
be.
if this is good enough.
I don't know.
It just
It's
takes so long for you to get like the payoff is the third effect, and once you do the third one, you sacrifice this enchantment, right?
yeah, correct.
So you don't have the opportunity to flicker wisp it after you've got the value out of it. Like I don't think putting a +1/+1 counter on your creature every turn is really not
I don't
all
know
that
how
appealing.
I don't know how the sagas trigger. So I don't know. I don't
It
know
seems like
if it as it
well, it says
resolves the
add a lore
sacrifice.
counter, sacrifice after 3,
Right, but I don't know if that sacrifice is a trigger or just a
or it's
part
like
of the resolution. Because if it's a trigger,
oh
that
yeah, like
changes this.
it could be understood as once you were to try to put the fourth one on, then you sacrifice.
Yeah, I'm not sure what happens. Because if
Okay,
it's
that would be different.
yeah,
Okay.
that's why I'm
Oh,
not sure.
one of the white card that we didn't talk about today, because we talked about it last week, is Fall of Thran, but I think that one certainly has a chance to see play in Modern. Destroy all lands is an effect that there's really nothing in Modern that can provide that, especially for 6 mana. And then this is a format where we've got Flicker Wisp and whatnot, and that makes this quite interesting.
So
Um,
this is the kind of card I would play in a deck with like Tormod script.
oh yeah, just get rid of their lands, and you get your 2 every turn afterwards. That's pretty cute.
Correct. Like it would obviously be a black deck, so you could play Nihil Spellbomb or uh, Ravenous Trap, because
Sure.
those are the 2 cards that you would probably be more likely to use. You don't want to use Relic of Progenitus because you want your lands back. But
Right.
if you could resolve this in such a way that you kill all the lands and then play a fetch land, then you get a fetch land back and play another fetch land. Like those are lines that you have. But yeah, like that if there's a big ramp deck that wants to do something like this is the card. Like this is the way you can abuse it.
Yeah, I'm interested to see like if you don't have the Nile Spellbomb or the Ravenous Trap when you go to cast a Fall of Thran, are you really at an advantage doing so? You know, like a deck that like kind of gets up to 6 mana so that it can cast a spell like this likely isn't going to have a lot to do with the 2 mana that it gets in the next turn versus an opponent on an aggressive deck or something.
So here's the thing. The Armageddon is good in like these situations. When you're ahead on board with creatures, you Armageddon so everyone else doesn't have mana to interact with you and you kill them. Or you have mana that's unaffected by the Armageddon. So if you have mana creatures, Aether Vial, but Aether Vial decks probably aren't going to want to play a 6-mana enchantment. Signets and things like that. Okay. So like the white-red Blood Moon deck would want to do this, or like white-black, because then you could play like Orzhov Signet, like artifact mana, like Everflowing Chalice. What's the other one? Mindstone. I was like, I just looked at it. Everflowing Chalice and Mindstone, things like that. Like, if you can put that mana into play and use it to accelerate to this, as long as you're not behind on board, then you're untapping with 4 and 5 mana and have the ability to like play threats.
Yeah. Are you getting arrested again, Daryl?
Dude, it's Baltimore. I get arrested every day.
That's right. It's The Wire. We were talking about that earlier.
Yeah, I literally, the cops are here every day.
Okay. Yeah, this is cool. Someone's got to try it. It's just too appealing to like just let it sit and not be a modern deck. It's going to become something. Maybe it won't be any good, but
someone's going to try it. It's going to be bad, and they'll stop trying it. So,
at the least, I want to cast it against Tron. So that would be fun. All right. The next one. That's it for white, actually. Yeah, let's do one more color today, and we'll save the rest for next week.
Oh, you got
it. We better talk about blue.
Blue? You want to start with blue? You want to go in order? All right.
Yeah. Merfolk Trickster.
What'd you say? You want to go in order?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Merfolk Trickster. Tell me about it, Joe. What is it first?
Okay. It's blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard with Flash. When Merfolk Trickster enters the battlefield, tap target creature an opponent controls. It loses all abilities until end of turn.
I mean, that's pretty unique, isn't it?
So this is like a thing you could play in like blue-white hate bears if you could make the mana base work.
Yeah.
It messes with Tarmogoyf. Because it makes it. I don't know if it makes it an 0/1 or not because it's an ability on the card.
It does. Yeah.
Oh, fancy. So it messes with Tarmogoyf. It messes with Ulamog and Emrakul. Because it taps them and then they lose all of their abilities, so you can target them with spells and kill them. Like Ulamog loses Indestructible, Emrakul loses can't be targeted by colored spells. So if you have a Terminator or Path to Exile, you can remove those things. Path to Exile wouldn't care about Ulamog.
How about this one? This is really unusual. Against Storm in like a Merfolk deck or a Hate Bears deck, you flash it in response to their first Manamorphose or whatever. Yeah.
And turn off Baral. Yeah, I mean that's
That's
definitely a thing that's possible and really interesting. And then there's just like every deck has generic creatures. You can turn off Meddling Mages to get like your Lords in play. You can turn off Dark Confidants to prevent card advantage. You can if their creatures are like pump creatures, you can like cause them to like lose their pumps. This does a lot of nice things, and I don't know how to use it. I'm just gonna say that
getting played straight up in Merfolk.
Like obviously, it gets played in Merfolk. It's a 2/2 that has an ability that's better than Merfolk of the Pearl Trident or whatever it is, or not Pearl Trident.
It's definitely better than that one.
What's the 2/2 flash guy that bounces a dude?
Harbinger of Tides. It's different than that though.
No,
it's different than Harbinger of Tides.
Is it?
Yeah, Harbinger of the Tides costs 4 to have flash.
Yeah, Tidebinder Mage was the one I was thinking of.
Tidebinder Mage.
No, it's better than
that one.
Yeah, it's better than Tidebinder Mage for sure. I wasn't sure if it was better than Harbinger of Tides. Like, maybe.
It probably is, but it does something so different though, But I don't know. Like, Tidebinder Mage obviously is probably like more useful against
Tarmogoyf.
Well, I don't know, because this can trick Tarmogoyf into just being dead entirely. So that's probably worthwhile.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's got a lot of cool effects. I think some of my favorite ones are dealing with Storm, but also just flashing into play and kill a phantasmal image that's targeting like a Thalia's lieutenant or something.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
kind of fun. There's just tons of stuff that you're gonna be like caught with your pants down when this guy comes into play. Like, oh shit, wasn't expecting Merfolk Trickster of all things,
Yeah, well, yeah,
and
unexpected.
2 mana 2/2 with flash. It's like a Snapcaster Mage that has a free humble attached to it.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
that's cool.
Going down this list of blue cards on Mythic Spoiler, I'm gonna sidetrack us to a couple cards
Yeah.
that you didn't talk about. The first
Okay.
one being the Antiquities War. It's another
Okay.
saga, 3 and a blue. 1 and 2 are the same. Look at the top 5 cards of your library. You can reveal an artifact from among them, put them in your hand, put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. And number 3 is artifacts you control become artifact creatures with base power toughness of 5/5 until end of turn.
Is this a blue card?
It is. It's
Oh, the Antiquities War.
yeah, the
Filed under
Antiquities
T.
War.
Gotcha.
Yep, the Antiquities War.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah, this one's interesting.
so this is, I think, is a very good sideboard card for Affinity. In the
Yeah.
matchups where the game slows down, you have this like 4 mana card that impulses twice, and then makes all your creatures 5/5s. So Tezzeret Agent of Bolus is like a card that Affinity would like to play, but it can't
Yeah.
because like the mana colors of Tezzeret is just so hard to work that they can't play it. So you lose
I was just thinking this is Tezzeret.
yeah,
Right? It's a
yeah,
Tezzeret Planeswalker spell.
yeah. So you lose the drain ability, which is really nice. But you
Uh,
get this thing where you get to draw 2 cards basically, and
yep.
then turn all of your living artifacts into 5. All of your artifacts, because it's not just all of your artifact creatures. So all your Springleaf Drums, all your Mox Opals, all your Darksteel Citadels are 5/5s. So now all the layabout crappy artifacts you have are actually going to do something. So
Yeah.
you can play
Yeah.
this game where you only draw like 1 or 2 creatures, but you drew like a Darksteel Citadel, a Mox Opal, a Cranial Plating, and a Springleaf Drum, and like a manland, and then you activate your manland, and all of a sudden you have 5/5/5s at the end of turn, at the beginning of your turn, and so now your opponent has to figure out how to beat 5/5/5s.
Yeah, that is not that is a non-zero quote unquote ultimate. That's a big deal. All those, I mean, yeah, the biggest one for me is like all of your artifact lands all of a sudden become huge. Like that is a surprising alpha strike out of nowhere. It's kind of hard to compare this card to anything because we don't really know how these sagas are really going to play out yet.
No.
But like this is functionally a planeswalker effect every turn that you don't get to choose, and then it's like basically you probably are going to win the game on 3, hopefully, if things go as planned.
With this one you will probably win the game on 3.
But it's kind of weird because we can compare it to like Ancient Strings, for example, which is we already have that card. It costs 1 mana, but that is like a ridiculously broken card, and it's like not the standard or the bar on a 1 mana card by any means.
So this card is literally 2 Tezzeret Planeswalkers stapled together. It's the +1 off of Tezzeret Agent of Bolus, which is look at the top 5, take an artifact, put it in your hand, and it's the ultimate of Tezzeret the Seeker.
Yeah.
So it's taking those 2 Tezzeret Planeswalkers and like stapling them together. And I think that in slower games this is going to be very good for Affinity, but I don't know how many they'll play and when they'll board it in and stuff like that. But I feel like this is one of those cards that if you see this in Affinity, like for the longest time people were just playing Scissors in Affinity because they were like, well,
yeah,
it's 2 mana to make a 5/5. This is kind of like Scissors, but it also gives you a long game premise of like I'm going to draw 2 cards off of it, which is going to give me 2 extra 5/5s on top of any number of 5/5s I have left laying around, because my just random crappy artifacts are 5/5s too. So like I think there's a lot to like here for Affinity in longer matchups. It also is very good against Stony Silence. If you can get to 4 mana, this is your out to Stony Silence because you just turn all of your artifacts that can't do anything into 5/5s and kill them.
Yeah, I just my biggest concern would be that it's just too slow for Modern. Like, like Gear per Aether Grid doesn't that gets around Stony Silence too, right?
It does, but
that seems to be like a similar role.
Right, but Aether Grid is slower.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, Aether Grid is slower, and like it will let you do it for a longer period of time, but it's weaker to different things than like Aether Grid can lose to like Rune Halo and things like that, whereas Antiquities War doesn't do that. It just is like, here's some card advantage, and then I'm going to try and kill them. So like Aether Grid's good against the Snaring Bridge. Like there's different ups and downs to both cards.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I guess the way I'm looking at this card, I'm thinking as a control player, you know, my opponent plays that they tap out. They don't play anything else on that one turn. And it's scary to me, but it just tells me, okay, I've got 2 turns to find a Wrath of God. You know, I've got to get rid of all these artifacts. But you're right about the lands. You know, we got like the fact that they can just attack you with 15 damage worth of lands. That's
right. But
that's a real deal.
Your Wrath of Gods don't do anything, because are you going to Wrath of God their Mox Opal? Are you going to Wrath of God their Springleaf Drum? Or their Cranial Plating? You have to draw like your one Subtle the Wreckage, or like have a bunch of disenchants and just be like, disenchant that and desphere that, and like hope it's all good. Otherwise, like all of the crappy artifacts that like get Stony Silenced or just don't have any creatures to interact with, all of a sudden are 5/5s. And so now you have to like have a bunch of answers.
Sure. Yeah, this is a very good card. I didn't really consider it in that way. So, yeah, good point.
Yeah.
All right, man. All right, let's talk about this one. I don't really like this one so much, but I've heard Patrick Chapin and Michael Flores talk about this one and the other one in the cycle. Wizard's Retort is 1 blue for it's basically cancel on its own, but it costs 1 less to cast if you control a wizard. Yeah. Obviously an instant. The red one is a bolt that costs 3 unless you control a wizard. It costs 1. Is there really a potential for Wizard Tribal? Yes, I know there are lots of good wizards in Modern with like Snapcaster Mage and Bob and whatnot, but I don't think we're really that hungry for a counterspell in Modern because we've got like Logic Knot and Negate and Mana Leak that just seem to be better.
I agree. This card will be really good in Standard.
It'll be great in Standard, yeah.
Yeah, but not too excited about it otherwise.
The same is true for the red card. And you know, I know we're not in red right now, but while we're talking about this card, it seems to make sense to just cover all of them.
Wizard's
Lightning.
Red
one is Wizard's Lightning. Stupid name, first of all. 2 in a red for an instant, 3 damage to any target. Costs 2 less if you control a wizard. We've got all of the like 3 damage for 1 mana spells in Modern already. So once again, I don't feel like it's something that's needed.
Not going to make it, no.
So, all right. And then the last one you put on the list here is Tetsuko Umezawa.
I got 2 more, actually, because I just saw one that I think is interesting to talk about. So the first one is Tetsuko Umezawa Fugitive. 1 in a blue for a legendary human rogue. Creatures you control with power or toughness less than 1 or less can't be blocked.
Oh, power or toughness is interesting.
Yeah. So this is going to be pretty good in Legacy.
Oh, yeah? Monastery Mentor or what?
So Mentor it doesn't work with because the 2/2 and the tokens are 1/1s. You can attack with the tokens and then play spells afterwards because they can't be blocked.
Right.
Snapcaster Mage, Stoneforge Mystic, Dark Confidant, Baleful Strix, if you're so desperate, Deathrite Shaman, Young Pyromancer, Elemental tokens. Like
it's pretty good with Young Pyromancer tokens, huh?
Yeah, there's a lot of like very reasonable, well-played creatures that are very good with Umezawa. Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, Flicker Wisp.
Yeah, I like that Flicker Wisp. That's pretty awesome. That card is like the biggest power on a creature that is so vulnerable to everything in the skies. So to get it through like that is pretty cool.
Yeah.
How about Ball Lightning, Daryl?
No. No. I was totally on board, and I really like this card, and then no. But yeah, if you have things that trigger when you deal damage, unfortunately you can't put swords on them because then they're bigger than Umezawa. Allows to be unblocked. Yeah. But same thing with Batterskull, but his Jite works very well with him because you can sneak through a 1-power creature and then pump it with Jite or just get free Jite counters. And your creature will be unblocked. Like True Name Nemesis is a magic card, so it's kind of awkward that you do run into, well, why wouldn't you just True Name? And my answer is you can only play so many True Names. But, you know, I mean, Vendilion Click and Flicker Whisper both unblockable with this card. So, like, there's a lot of creatures in Legacy that are good with this card. And this card might fit into like, unfortunately, all the humans are just a little too big, because otherwise it would fit into humans. Because making
I
all
think
of
so.
your
As a human.
making all of your creatures unblockable is a very appealing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Its stats are kind of interesting too. I mean, it's a 1/3. Obviously, it would be like insane as a 3/1.
Oh my god, it would be so
But a
silly as a
1/3
3-1.
like does something to block the Goblin Guides of the world
Yeah.
and can attack when needed. I don't know. I'm not sure how I feel about this one in Modern, but you bring up a
Yeah.
good point about Legacy. I mean, we have Young Pyromancer in Modern too, so that's a consideration. But I've never really
Yes.
been in the market for something like this guy when I'm playing Young Pyromancer deck.
Yeah, I mean, if you need an Alpha Strike with Young Pyromancer, here's your guy. Like, if you
Yeah.
play against like Ground Mirrors, this could be a sideboard card where like the board gets gummed up with Young Pyromancer tokens, and you're just like, all right, Umazawa, attack you, and they just can't block.
Yeah. There's Bloodghast. You could play a Bloodghast and attack with, or a bunch of Bloodghast and keep getting in with those guys. That'd be kind of interesting.
Also true.
Narcomoeba too.
All your generic Savannah Lion creatures that are like 2/1s.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, there's a lot of space for this card to be good. I don't know how if it will be, because it's a very unique.
I think of the blue cards, I'm most excited for this Merfolk Trickster. I think it's the most appealing to me. But you said you had one more, don't you? What do you got? Finish us off with a strong one.
Precognition Field. I should have used Umazawa if you wanted a strong one. Precognition Field. So it's 3 and a blue for an enchantment. You may look at the top card of your library at any time. You may cast the top card of your library if it's an instant or sorcery. Pay 3 mana, exile the top card of your library.
Yeah.
So,
all right, where do you see this fitting?
I don't
Maybe a
know. Like, that's the problem. Like, Future Sight is a very good Magic card.
Yeah.
And so, like, this is basically Future Sight, but you get to keep the information hidden. You can mill off like the lands you don't need because it lets you cycle through your deck for like 3 mana, and you can just hide cryptic commands on top of your deck and be like, all right, I have this Precognition Field, go. You know, when you're untapped, all right, you played a thing, all right, I'll cryptic you off the top of my deck and draw a card. Or you can.
That is pretty sweet.
Or you can. So, like, I don't know how the timing works with Precognition Field. You can cast the cryptic command, and I don't know if it like peels off the top of your deck before or after you choose modes. Because if it's like while you're casting it, you can look at the next card and go, well, I don't need to draw a card. I'd rather bounce my Snapcaster. So.
Oh, yeah. That's a good question.
Yeah.
I would imagine it would because, you know, like when you cast a Court of Calling, when you have a Courser in play, while you're searching your deck for your creature, you get to see what's on top of your deck already.
Right. But so the problem is like when you're casting the Cryptic Command, when you choose the modes, I think it's before the spell leaves the top of your deck. So I don't know if you get to look at the next card or not to determine whether or not you want to draw the card.
Yeah, that is relevant. That's a good question.
But... like, that's a function that's there.
Yeah.
But you can use it to, like, mill past additional lands that you just don't really need. If it's not the opportune time to draw, like, a Planeswalker or a Snapcaster, you can just push it to get to the next card. And then you just have this, like, constant value engine that's going to continue paying off. This could be, like, a very good card for Storm.
Yeah, I suppose it could.
Where matchups where, you know, Gifts Ungiven is not too slow, but is like the very obvious target of, you know, Dispel, which is a very good card against Gifts Ungiven. You can play Precognition Field and have no cards in hand and just go off the top of your library. So like against like Jund, this card is very good because they have like 1 Maelstrom Pulse to beat it. Otherwise, you're just like casting spells off the top of your library constantly. And so like all of the value that your opponent, like all of the resources your opponent expended to like strip you of your hand sort of were nullified by playing this and then just continuing to peel spells off the top of your library.
Yeah, this is okay. Now that the more we talk about this, the more excited I'm getting about this card. I think this is really kind of cool. Your opponent can't like it when you've got the game-winning lightning bolt sitting on top of your deck and you just flip it and kill them with it on their turn. But the ability to, you know, fetch through that stuff is really pretty important too. I know that when I'm playing green and I've got Courser on the table, the disadvantage is that my opponent can see the card and so can I. I mean, I guess the disadvantage is purely that my opponent can see it.
Yeah.
The advantage is that I can see it and I know what I'm going to draw, so I can fetch through cards that aren't going to help me out.
Correct.
So this one having the upside of only you can look at it, and then the ability to exile it in itself in addition to like just having fetches and Field of Runes and things like that to shuffle through it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Like, I don't know how good it's going to be, because like
Well,
it puts this very real tax on you of like forcing you to try to win the game with instants and sorceries.
yeah.
Because like
Well,
you can't play planeswalkers off the top of your deck, you can't play creatures, and you can't play lands. So like you're looking at a deck that like wants to play like Cruel Ultimatum or Approach the Second Sun, or like you need one of these like sorcery or instant win conditions. Holy crap! I just thought of it. Scape Shift.
yeah. So
Because
like
like,
bring to
well,
light, Scape Shift.
it doesn't have to be
Once
bring.
one.
It doesn't have to be bring to light. It could just be Teamer Scape Shift. Because oftentimes in Teamer Scape Shift, you had a bunch of lands and like four Sakura Tribe Elders, and then the rest of your deck was instants and sorceries to make you live to get to Scape Shift. So like playing this card, you could play like 30 other cards out of your deck, which are like ramp spells to shuffle away the bad cards, or Scape Shift, which just kills your opponent.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So like that, like Teamer Escape Shift, I don't think it's gonna like revive Teamer Escape Shift. I'm not going on record, but like this is an interesting thing that you can do to have in your sideboard to draw extra cards with Teamer Escape Shift.
Yeah, it's a great one-off.
Like my thought is, are there situations where you want this and not Jason the Mind Sculptor? And my answer is, if you're not playing multiple cards in a turn, you want Jason the Mind Sculptor.
Yeah. I was thinking this as just a value engine, like for control decks, but then I came back to Jason. I was thinking, well, he can just brainstorm, right? Like that's more value than this can provide. But you're right. It's a combo. It's a combo enabler.
Yeah.
So Storm is a good example of a kind of deck that would want to just like cycle through all their top decks and just storm you out, versus a control deck is probably not so interested. I mean, yes, it's good, but probably not so interested in just saying, okay, I'm going to exile the top card of my library because I don't like to draw it. I'm hoping to find something better. There are better ways to control your draws. Searcher is Canted, for example.
Absolutely. But yeah, like this, I definitely could see as a Storm deck, because like, especially with cards like Serum Visions, you can draw a card and then leave spells on top of your deck, and instead of having to wait to draw them, you just get them.
Right. Yeah.
So like,
Serum Visions is good. Thought Scour even can
control the top. Yeah, control the top of your deck. So I mean, I want this to be good. It's very interesting. It caught my eye when I was just scrolling through the spoiler. I don't know if it's going to be good enough or not.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, I think we ought to close out on that. We will save the rest of this for next week and potentially 2 weeks, because we've got black, green, red, gold, and artifact to cover yet.
Yeah.
So there are lots of cool things in this set that I'm interested in talking about. White was definitely the most exciting for me, but of course some of my picks were a little bit suspicious with like the Teshar and whatnot.
Yeah. Well, a little suspect.
I think I'm a little more confident with the red choices, so stay tuned for those.
We also have 120 cards, so some stuff could get spoiled that might be good enough. So.
Yeah. All right, man. Well, have a good one. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Take it easy.
Goodbye.
Bye.